So I'm very open about the fact that I struggled with anxiety for a long time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about anxiety is that, I'm now talking to you from the perspective of being 53 years old. I was like really fucked up. And by fucked up, I mean, not that I was like stealing cars or breaking laws or doing anything like that, but I was not comfortable in my own body. And the way that I would describe it is, I think from that moment, literally, that moment in fourth grade that I just shared with you, it makes me really sad to think about the fact that I was just a fourth grader that had had a traumatic experience. I didn't know, but my nervous system remembered. And so anytime I went to bed, I woke up the next morning with the sensation in my body that something was wrong. And any pattern of behavior or thinking that you start to repeat becomes a habit. Habits are just patterns. That's all that they are. And so I had a life experience because of one incident where I would wake up every single morning and feel like something was wrong and I couldn't put my finger on it. And the more that you wake up and think something's wrong, the more your brain is going to find reasons why something might be wrong. And so I developed this sort of chronic state of feeling on alert, feeling this sense that I got to be aware.
Fight or flight.
Yes, yeah. Yes. My, in clinical terms, my sympathetic nervous system got switched on. And I had no idea how to turn it off. And if you don't know how to calm your nervous system down, to flip off the sympathetic nervous system and flip on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your calm, grounded, resting nervous system, you will forever struggle with focus, with being present, with the ability to think clearly and make good decisions. You will constantly talk about the fact that you feel anxious, and that comes from your nervous system always being on edge and being in fight or flight. I didn't know any of this. I was just a nervous kid with a nervous stomach. Every camp that I went to, I got sent home because I was too homesick. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know how homesick you have to be for trained counselors to actually call your parents and go, we got a problem here. She can't stay here. Like, she is out of her mind.
When you say out of your mind, what are the physical symptoms or verbal symptoms of that?
Oh, my gosh. Complete disassociation. So I would be at camp, like literally sixth grade camp. So at the end of sixth grade year, and I feel bad for little Mel Robbins. I feel bad for her because, here's this experience, sixth grade camp, where the entire school for 4 nights goes away to a camp, just the sixth grade. It's supposed to be the culmination of your sixth grade year. And I am so freaked out that something bad is going to happen, that I, of course, escalate things in my own mind. I don't even feel like I'm at camp. I feel like I'm walking on a movie set. I don't feel like I'm on Earth. I feel like I'm on a spaceship somewhere looking down all the time. I feel like I might throw up because my stomach is rattled, because when you're anxious and you can't focus your thoughts, you tend to not eat. And so that, of course, upsets your stomach. It's not that something bad's going to happen. It's that you're screwing up the chemistry in your stomach by not eating because you're so nervous, which only makes it worse. And as your mind is scrambling, thinking something bad is going to happen, and then your stomach is hurting, then you start to think, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. And then you start to think, well, if I throw up, something bad's going to happen. And then the kids are going to laugh. And like, it just becomes this spiral train wreck. And that is the state that I lived in. And so, you learn how to cope. It becomes your new normal. But that was basically my life, constantly feeling like something bad was going to happen, constantly feeling like I wasn't really present, constantly lying or fibbing about how I felt or what I was thinking because I didn't want people to judge me. I mean, it's awful.
And then you come through college and you've got to make that choice in life as to which direction you're going to go in. It seems quite...
Choice. I love the choice, yeah.
Yeah, well, how would you define it?
Panic.
Panic, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because I had only ever lived in survival mode.
So did you not take a pause to decide to sort of listen
Take
to
a pause.
who you were and what your calling was? And
Take a pause.
you know,
when you have anxiety, your whole mode of living is, if I'm on the move, no one can catch me. If I am on the run, I'm safe. And so what's interesting is that I think the only time in my life that I have actually slowed down was during the pandemic. Does that sound familiar?
yeah, of course, yeah, you had no choice.
Yeah. And one of the hardest things, which became one of the greatest realizations, is truly coming face to face with myself and realizing that even though I have done all this work to heal trauma, even though I have done extraordinary things in terms of my own thinking patterns, that there was a level to which I was still on the run, that I was darting off to a coffee shop or darting off to Target or darting off to an airplane. And all of this racing around kept me from having to truly stop and stand with the woman in the mirror and just be still and figure out, well, what do I really want? How do I really want to feel? Anxiety always begins with a worry. Always. It begins with a thought that is triggered by something. So if you suffer from anxiety, you wake up in the morning and your mind spins, you lay in bed at night and your mind spins, you walk into work and you feel anxious in your body. Interestingly, another major trigger is being home or going home and that moment right before your partner walks in the door. If you feel anxious when your partner's about to walk in or you're about to walk into your own home, that is a major signal that you are in the wrong relationship, that there is something incredibly off and you either need to get into counseling, but that is one that we hear a lot about.
Wow.
Because you're walking into a situation that feels uncertain.
Yeah.
A lot of people, by the way, had parents that were abusive or parents that were yellers. So they also are experiencing ghosts from the childhood of it's 5 o'clock, dad's about to come home and pour a drink and everybody's on edge.
Yeah.
So write down the triggers, okay? Because having kind of the triggers ahead of time will help you come up with a plan for how you're going to catch yourself when your mind defaults to the automatic ways that it thinks. Then what I want you to write down next to the trigger is, what exactly are you worried about? So having the trigger and then what do I worry about? I worry that my boss is going to yell. I worry that my partner's going to yell. I worry that I'm going to get in trouble. I worry that, my friends are going to laugh at me. I worry that I'm going to be whatever the it may be. Then what you're going to do is you're going to write down what I call an anchor thought. An anchor thought is something that weighs you down and it makes you excited. And so here's how the strategy works with the 5-second rule. The next time you're in a situation, and let's just use the example of pulling into your own driveway or your own apartment, and maybe you've got issues with your boyfriend or girlfriend or your roommate, and that makes you unsettled. The second you pull in and you feel the trigger, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because I want to interrupt your mind from going into the I don't like, what if I, and then you're going to drop in the anchor thought of the last time that you and your roommate really got along well, or the last time that you stood up for yourself and it went fine. And
or your puppy.
Yeah, or a puppy or whatever. And you're going to say, I'm so excited to deal with this.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get out of your car, even though your body is going to feel a little unsettled and your mind's going to race. Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you start to be like, but what? And then walk in the door. And what I'm teaching you to do is to not let your mind hijack you.
Right.
And it's very important because there's a very tight nexus between your habit of worrying and spiraling your thoughts and the way your body starts to amp up. And so we want to settle your mind so we don't agitate your body. You got it?
Yeah.
And so if you start to practice that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and for you 18-year-olds that are watching this, use this with the nerves that you have about what you're going to do with your life. Use this when you catch yourself worrying about college applications, because worrying about the applications won't get them done. Worrying about what your friends are doing won't make it happen. Worrying about what you're going to be doing when you're 25 or how you're going to make money, it's not going to help you make money right now. It's only going to make you miserable.
Right.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cut off that habit.
Yeah.
That'll stabilize your body, and then go to a vision of you at the age of 25, driving a car that you think is cool and hanging out with a friend that's cool and saying to yourself, I'm so excited because I know I'm going to figure it out. Because you don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
But it becomes a habit that destroys your year this year. We are in the middle of Anxiety Week, and I'm super excited about this because I'm somebody who has struggled with anxiety for a large part of my life. For more than 2 decades, anxiety was a chronic and debilitating issue for me. I have 2 kids that struggle with anxiety. I know that it is a struggle for many of you. There's a documented rise in anxiety, and so we are spending an entire week talking about tools that you can use to understand anxiety, to break apart the thinking habits in your mind, to catch the triggers, and that's what we're talking about today, the triggers that are triggering you to feel anxious before you even realize that it's starting, and what you can do with science, particularly something called anchor thoughts, to quiet your mind, to settle your body, to stop the agitation, and to get control in a moment where normally you would spin out of control. So today we're going to talk about triggers. If you missed yesterday's training, it's very important that you watch it. So on day 13, we talked about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how the habit of worrying about things in the future, things that make you feel uncertain, things that are out of your control, things that you shouldn't worry about at all. Oh, here comes our son. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. Sweetheart, I will be done with this training in about 15 minutes, okay? He doesn't look worried at all today. So interesting, that's a trigger for me. So we're talking about triggers today, and triggers are, do I know where your phone is? It's in the pocket of my coat that I wore when I tucked you in last night. I'm single parenting it today, so thank you for your patience with the the fact that I needed to help Oakley along. I got to get him to school this morning before I catch a flight to San Francisco. That's a trigger for me. That when something unexpected happens when I'm on a live stream, my stomach immediately gets tight. My thoughts don't go, uh-oh, just yet. My body tenses up. And triggers are a very important thing for you to bring out of the woodwork. And the reason why is there are things that happen to you all day long that trigger tense feelings in your body, that trigger your body to remember situations from your childhood that made you feel out of control or anxious or unsafe. It's things that happen that trigger you to start bracing yourself. And so one of the things that we're going to do now that we've already talked about worrying, and we've talked about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and we've talked about the fact that worrying becomes a habit, and it's a habit that you need to break. And if you haven't watched that training, just go to YouTube. It's video number 13, and it's all about the connection between worrying and anxiety. Today, we're going to go a little deeper. So yesterday, I asked you to go through your day and start to notice the things that you worry about. And many of you wrote to us and said that the list was long, and even seeing the list was overwhelming. That's totally okay. We got to get this stuff out of the dark in order to help you fix it and solve the habit of worrying and teach yourself how to be a much more deliberate thinker. Today, let's go a little bit deeper because we did get a question. Danielle, could you put the questions in the text chain, because I could not pull up the email this morning that had the production sheet. We got an email, a comment that was all about worrying yesterday, and I'm not going to remember it directly, but I can paraphrase it. Oh, here it is. Mary Carmen Gamero. That's Mary Carmen Gamero. I'm sorry, I'm so all over the place this morning. Thank you for your patience. It's a crazy morning before I have to get on a plane to San Francisco, and I'm doing this alone, and I'm a little overwhelmed because the kids are starting to get up. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to keep on going. Yes, here it is. Thank you. Martha Lester Smith. This all makes so much sense to me, but I'm struggling with catching myself in the moment and redirecting. I can often look back and see where and when my mind went to the negative, to the worry, but I don't catch myself in the moment. Any suggestions? Martha, that's not uncommon because the thought pattern of drifting to the future and starting to ruminate and worry about something that's outside of your control or that doesn't matter right now, or an issue or worrying is not going to make an impact. It's such a habit that most of us aren't even aware when our minds are doing it. So this is going to be a new skill. Have patience with yourself. The reason why we're talking about triggers today is because if you have trouble catching yourself in the moment, one of the most effective things that you can do is you can do an audit of your day, and you can identify all of the situations, the people, and the time of days or experiences that you have that trigger you to feel uneasy, or that trigger you to start to worry, or that trigger you to brace yourself. And by going through your day and doing an audit and identifying those moments or times a day where you're tense or where you're on edge or where you anticipate that bad things are going to happen or it's something that you worry about, knowing the triggers in advance gives you a tremendous amount of power because it allows you to pre-plan what you're going to do in response to that trigger. So let me give you an example. I want you today, here's your homework, to go through your day, and I want you to go step by step by step from the moment you wake up. When are the moments that you worry? What are the situations that you're in throughout your day that trigger you to be tense? And after you go from the moment you wake up to the moment you get into your bed, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go and identify, are there people in your life that trigger you to worry? So, for example, when you wake up, are worries the first thing on your mind? Does just waking up and thinking about your day trigger worry? If so, write about it. Does walking into the kitchen and eating breakfast trigger worry? Are you starting a new eating plan and it's overwhelming and you're doubting yourself? Does the idea of getting out of the house, this was one that was surprising to me, because I don't have this one right now, but in reading so many comments from you as you've been sharing your worries and sharing the things that you struggle with, just getting out of the house is a cause of major distress for many of you. And if that's you, give me a thumbs up or give us a heart so people know that they're not alone. And that was me when Chris and I were facing all of the major issues that we had 10 years ago, from bankruptcy to alcoholism to fighting nonstop and just starting the day, just getting out of the house. Boy, did that make me brace myself, because it made me have to face the issues that I was dealing with in my life. Does walking into work cause it for you? Does figuring out what you're going to eat for lunch? Does having to make cold calls? Does the work itself that you have to do in your job, your side hustle, your passion project, the book you need to write, does that create worry and anxiety for you? Does heading home from work create? Does being in the school pickup line and being worried about what your kid, like, there are so many moments in your day. A humongous trigger for people is 5 o'clock at night. 5 o'clock at night when the lights start to get dark, major trigger. And the reason why is many of you grew up in households where there was abuse, you witnessed abuse, you had a parent that was an alcoholic, you had all kinds of tension in your house. And at 5 o'clock, what happens is the light starts to change and people start to come home. People start to drink. And that can be a major, major trigger for people. Major, because your body remembers what it was like to be a kid in a household when an alcoholic parent came home. And so your nervous system, believe it or not, is triggered by the time of day and the light changing and the fact that maybe you're with somebody or you live with somebody that comes home and has a drink. And that gets your mind to go. And so today, all I want you to do is I want you to identify the triggers. And here's why. When we pull the triggers out of the dark, we can teach you how to put a plan in place to respond to them so that you're not triggered and going into autopilot and starting to worry and feel anxious and having no control or idea why. Okay. And we got to break these all apart. I'm going to be talking to you about the connection between worrying and anxiety, and how it is critical if you want to quiet your anxiety, if you want to stop worrying, if you want to get control over what you're thinking about. It's going to begin with a habit that you have that somebody else trained you, that you've gotten really good at this habit. And you know what the habit is? It's the habit of worrying. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of, sorry, let me just move that a little bit. We're all guilty of worrying about things that are beyond our control, worrying about things that doesn't matter, worrying about things that we shouldn't care about. Sorry, I've got the streaming lights anymore. Hold on, let me just ask Mandy a question. Worrying about all kinds of things that you shouldn't worry about. And it becomes a habit. It becomes a default way of thinking. And so in order to kick off Anxiety Week, I want to explain the connection between worrying and why that impacts anxiety. And now, since we're talking about anxiety, I have to be very clear about something, okay? I am not a therapist. I am an individual who struggled personally with anxiety for more than 2 decades. I took Zoloft, which was a lifesaver, and I strongly believe in trying medication when a professional believes that you are so in a hole mentally that medication will give you the ability to start to claw your way out of that hole. I have learned so much about anxiety because of my own struggles, and 5 years ago, I trained myself to be a deliberate thinker, just like I'm training you to be a deliberate thinker in this program. And through everything that I am about to teach you, and all of the strategies that you're about to learn, I learned all of these by researching anxiety. And I road tested them on myself while I was still in therapy. And I then started going off of my medication. And as my mindset reset and as my thinking patterns became more positive and stronger and healthier, I was able to completely cure myself of anxiety. And I say that with the utmost of relief and confidence. And I have also gone on to use these exact same techniques that I'm going to teach you to help my children deal with their anxieties. I've written extensively about anxiety in the 5-Second Rule book, which is right behind me. We've sold almost 1 million copies of that book. It is the #1 self-published audiobook in the history of Audible. I'm so proud of it. And I speak at length about anxiety and using the 5-Second Rule to cure yourself of anxiety, okay? But I need to make it very clear that these training sessions are in no way a substitute for getting professional help. If you have the kind of clinical anxiety or you suffer from an anxiety disorder, it is paramount that you seek professional help from a therapist one-on-one, that you try remarkable therapies. I'm going to say it wrong, but it's EDRM or ERDM, which is the rapid eye movement therapy, incredibly helpful. And so don't be a hero. Don't go off your meds cold. Don't quit therapy because you think that this live training program is the answer. This live training program is a step. And this live training program for the next week in particular, while we talk about anxiety, you're going to be introduced to tools that are grounded in research and tools that have worked for millions of people and tools that you can take back to your therapist or take back to whatever counseling you get to help you become a deliberate thinker, which will help you quiet your anxiety, get control of it, and then ultimately cure it with the help of a professional if you have an anxiety disorder. So that said, please, please, please listen to everything that I'm about to tell you and try it, okay? Please try it because this stuff works if you practice it. And again, quieting anxiety, it's not an event. It's not a one and done. This is a process that you are going to repeat over and over and over again because the connection between anxiety and your mindset begins with your habit of worrying. We have a question from Twitter. Is worrying the same as overthinking? If you're overthinking about positive stuff and keeping yourself in an excited state, no, it's not. If you're overthinking and the overthinking is you spinning scenarios in your mind that are negative, yes. Overthinking is another word when it's negative for worrying on overdrive. It means that you worry in loops and you keep repeating the worry over and over and over as if you were washing the same load of laundry over and over and over again. And so we're starting with the habit of worrying about things that don't matter, worrying about things that you can't control, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, worrying about things that are far off in the future. When you start to train yourself to think about things that are not in your control, or think about things that are statistically likely never to happen, that is when you can get into trouble. And that's why we're going to start with worrying. You see, worrying is when you allow your mind to default on autopilot and think about things that don't serve you. Think about things that are outside of your control. I'm going to give you an example that's very recent in my life. So I don't know, there were a bunch of you that noticed in the live streams that were on January 6th and January 7th, and I think January 5th. Many of you noticed that I had a lot of discoloration on my neck and I had what appeared to be a lump. And my own dermatologist pointed it out to me, that I had a lump that was kind of like right here. Now, the second that somebody says lump, what are your thoughts default to? Automatically. The second somebody says you got a lump on your neck, cancer, of course. I've got some sort of disease that's going to kill me. And so what do I do when my thoughts go there? Well, then I start touching it and I start poking at it and I start pinching at it. And then I start asking everybody, do you see this lump on my neck? And asking people if they see a lump, that's a proactive action. That's a good idea. But the bad thing to do is to let your thoughts then default to thinking that you have cancer, to thinking that there's something wrong, to thinking that you're going to die, to thinking that this is going to be a major problem, to thinking that there's an emergency right now. And the problem with allowing your thoughts to go that way is because when you start to think about things, first of all, it's outside of my control if this is cancer or not. It's outside of my control right now if this is going to kill me. It's outside of my control right now whether or not a week from now when I go see my doctor, they're going to diagnose what is in my neck. Full disclosure, I saw my doctor. There's nothing wrong with me, okay? So if you allow your thoughts to constantly drift to the worst case scenario, what's going to happen as your thoughts spiral is your body is going to pick up on the fact that your thoughts are negative. Your body's going to pick up on the fact that your brain is worried. And what's going to happen if you allow your thoughts to spiral the way that mine started to about this silly little lump on my neck is that you will start to trigger agitation in your body. So when you start thinking negative things up here, you're going to start feeling negative things in here. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You might actually start to sweat. Your heart might start to race. Your throat might get tight. Your hands might get clammy. These are all telltale signs that you have now crossed from simply worrying in your mind to feeling physical agitation, which is anxiety. So that's the relationship between worrying about something, which is thinking negative thoughts about things that are outside your control, and anxiety, which is when those worries become physical agitation in your body caused by your thoughts. That's it. And so it's critical for you, if you have anxiety, if your kids have anxiety, if you're a chronic worrier, if you lay awake at night thinking about all these things that you need to do, we're going to go through all of this and all kinds of things that you can do to start to address this. It is critical that you understand that there is a connection between the day-to-day anxiety that many of you feel. We're not talking about anxiety disorders here. We're talking about the day-to-day anxiety that you feel that is triggered by the worries in your own head, that is triggered by the overwhelm that you feel in your life. This is anxiety that you can quiet. This is anxiety that you can get control of, because this form of anxiety is all triggered by your habit of worrying about things beyond your control. Worrying about whether or not your boss is going to snap at you. Worrying about whether or not your spouse is going to be in a bad mood when you walk in. Worrying about things that you can't necessarily control. And so here's the thing that you want to do. When you have a worry, for example, being worried about a lump in your neck is a good thing because it'll get you to take action. So the second that I confirmed and I looked at the screenshots that many of you sent me and I checked it out in the mirror, that I had a little something right here, I made an appointment with my doctor. And then you know what I did for the rest of the week? I practiced the tools that we've already covered in videos 1 through 11. I practiced the tools of autopilot versus deliberate thinking. You see, you worry when you're on autopilot. When you direct your thoughts and you're deliberate, you're now in control of what you're doing. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Mindset Reset, the playlist on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And on video number 2 is all about autopilot versus deliberate thinking. So I would catch myself when I'd start to think about the lump. And I would go, nope, I'm not going to worry about that because I can't control it. I'll find out on my doctor's appointment if there's anything that I need to be concerned about. Until then, I'm going to not think about that. I'm going to think about this. And so day 4, when we talked about thinking this and not that, so this is video number 4, I used those tools all this week, everybody, in order to make sure that I didn't allow my habit of worrying about some lump on my neck turn into anxiety that I started to feel in my body. Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And by directing my thoughts, so whenever I'd start to think, oh, there's that lump, and I'd start to touch it again, which of course makes it bigger, I would go, wait a minute, hold on, nope, I'm not going to think about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I'm going to be deliberate, and I'm going to think that I'm okay. And I started to train myself to go, I'm not going to worry about it until I have something to worry about. I'm going to make a doctor's appointment, and I will worry about it when there's something to worry about it. But for now, I'm just going to assume that it's totally fine, that there's nothing there, that maybe it's an insect bite or something like that that's gotten inflamed, and that's that. And you know what? It works. It works. And let's say that when I went to my doctor's appointment on Thursday, I got a bad diagnosis. Well, guess what? Then there are decisions to make. Then there are things to be concerned about. I still am going to have to manage my worries, because if I start to allow myself to get anxious about a negative situation, I'm going to make it worse for myself, okay? Your anxiety and your worrying doesn't change the things you need to do to address any problem in your life or potential problem. But worrying and causing yourself anxiety will make the potential problem worse, because you are going to make yourself feel worse. So it all begins with you and being deliberate about what you will allow yourself to think about and what you will not allow yourself to think about. In this video, I'm going to show you the specific way that you can use the 5-second rule to stop doubting yourself and worrying so much. Now, a lot of people will tell you, oh, just think positive, or try not to worry. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because it doesn't work. And actually, research shows that when you try to ignore your worries, it can actually make them worse. Look, I understand this topic more than most people because I struggled for decades, not only with worrying and self-doubt, I actually suffered from anxiety and panic attacks for almost 25 years. And in fact, I took Zoloft for 2 decades to control my anxiety. Using the 5-second rule, I've not only been able to stop worrying and doubting myself, I've cured myself of anxiety, and I've been off meds for more than 4 years. I'm panic attack free, and I almost never, ever worrying about anything. And you can teach yourself to do the exact same thing using the rule. First, here's what I want you to know. You're not a worrier. A lot of us call ourselves a worrier, right? Oh, I'm a worrier. You're not a worrier. You have a habit of worrying. That's a very big difference. You've allowed your mind to drift and linger on negative thoughts so many times, it's now a pattern of behavior that you repeat, and you don't even realize it. And that's actually good news, because that means that you and I can use the science of habits to break the habit of worrying and the habit of doubting yourself. In the language of habit research, the 5-second rule is what psychologists call a starting ritual. It's a tool that you can use that will interrupt the negative thought patterns that are encoded in your brain as habits and trigger positive new thought and behavior patterns. The 5-second rule is shockingly effective because it works with all the latest research about habits. What I've learned using the 5-second rule is that I do in fact have control over what I think. And when you use the 5-second rule, you'll discover that you do too. Here's how you're going to use the rule. The moment that you feel your thoughts drift, and have you ever noticed how worrying and self-doubt, they have a way of literally like taking you away from a situation. You can feel your mind go from the present moment to drifting to something negative. Maybe you're sitting at a meeting at work and suddenly you start talking down at yourself and doubting yourself. It happens like that. But the moment that you catch yourself do it, that's a moment of tremendous power. You have a decision to make. You can either sit there and listen to the worry and listen to the self-doubt and let it hijack you, or you can make a decision to assert control. That's when you use the rule. You're going to use the countdown trick, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's essential. Counting backwards interrupts the negative thought pattern. It's also going to awaken your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that you need to override a bad habit and replace your bad habit with a positive new one. So every time you feel your thoughts drift to something negative, or you find yourself worrying about things you can't control, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it'll switch the gears in your brain, it'll interrupt the negative thought pattern, it'll activate your prefrontal cortex, and you've just created a starting ritual that will prime your mind to accept a more positive thought. That is how you use the rule to change. Some days you might use the rule 20 times to interrupt your habit of worrying and doubting yourself. You know, I've heard a lot of experts say that fear isn't real. That is such a bunch of baloney. Fear is so real. In fact, there are probably things that you're afraid of doing right now in your life, in your relationships, at work. And the fact that you're afraid, that's robbing you of all of the experiences that you want to have in your life. I mean, if you're afraid to fly, that's going to limit your ability to travel and see the world or go visit friends. If you're afraid of public speaking, that's going to really limit your ability to express yourself and share your ideas. If you're afraid of talking to your boss or asking for a raise, that directly impacts how much money you make. Or what if you are dreaming of starting a business, or you've already started a new business, but you're afraid to talk to people and you're afraid to share your business with people? I mean, fear is something that stops us all. And that's why I'm here to talk to you, because it doesn't have to. Fear is real, but I am going to share a secret weapon that I have used for years to beat every single fear that used to stop me. Now, first, before we get into this secret weapon, I just want to cover a few facts about fear, what it is, what it isn't, and some things that you may not know about fear. So first thing, fear is a physical state in your body that is exactly the same as excitement. Let me say that again. Fear and excitement are the exact same physical state. Your heart races. You might sweat a little bit. You might feel tightening in your chest. You might feel a pit in your stomach. You have a surge of cortisol. It's basically the way that your body goes into a hyper-aware state because it's readying for action. Now, what's the difference between fear and excitement? Really simple. The only difference between fear and excitement is what your brain is doing as your body is all agitated. If you're excited, your brain's going, oh, wow, this is going to be so cool to ride this roller coaster. If you're afraid, your brain's going, no way, there's no way I'm doing that. This is dangerous. Get out of there. Don't do that. It's saying something different. So what's critical about understanding this is that we're going to use the fact that your mind is either working for you for excitement or against you with fear to your advantage. And I'll tell you about it in just a minute, how you're going to do that. Second thing I want you to understand is that you may have heard the advice, feel the fear and do it anyway. You may have heard the advice, oh, just try to calm down. Think positive thoughts. It doesn't work, does it? And there's a reason why it doesn't work. So let's go back to fact number one. When you're afraid, your body's in a state of arousal and agitation, and your heart is racing, and you're all like amped up, and you're hyper aware of what's going on, and you're freaking out a little bit. What is it like when you're calm? You just kind of chill, right? You got like this low arousal state. Very, very difficult to go from a state of agitation and being all jacked up and excited and weirded out and to a kind of state. It doesn't work. It's like trying to stop a train by throwing a boulder on the tracks. It's going to make the train jump off the tracks. It's going to cause a disaster. In fact, they've proven in research that when you try to ignore your fears, it actually makes them worse. And they've also proven in research that positive thinking alone also can make your fears worse. So, what do you do? What do you do when you're about to go talk to your boss and you feel afraid? What do you do when you have to get on a plane and you're actually terrified of flying? What do you do if you got to give a presentation and you are afraid of public speaking? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to use a strategy, the same one that I use, that has helped me beat every single fear and turned me into somebody that is terrific when it comes to a high-stress situation. This is how you do it. You're going to use my 5-second rule in combination with what I call an anchor thought, and that is going to reframe what your mind is doing so that your mind goes from feeling agitation and making you afraid to reframing it from agitation to excitement. It works like magic. Now, I have used this technique for years, literally for years. And one of the ways that I want to introduce you to it is I want to take you backstage. I want to take you backstage to a speech that I delivered this year. And what you're going to see is you're going to see me behind, the major set. I'm about to walk out. You can kind of hear the crowd roaring. My introductory video is playing. My body is in a state of arousal. I am literally, my heart is racing, my arms are sweating. Like you're going to see this. I'm going to tell you about it. And you're going to watch me use this same technique I'm going to teach you to reframe my nerves into excitement. Check this out. All right, I'm about to go on stage. There are 7,000 people out there, and it's so exciting because what they don't know is they're about to learn the 5-second rule, and their lives will never be the same again. Now, I gotta tell you, my heart is racing, my armpits are sweating. I have the exact same physiological feeling as when I'm afraid, but I'm not afraid. I'm excited. Excitement and fear is the exact same thing in your body. It's just what your brain calls it. Here's a trick that's proven by science that I use every time I speak. When I start to sweat, when I start to have butterflies, when I start to have my heart race,
I say, I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there. I'm excited to talk to these people. I'm excited to share the 5-second rule. And what that does is it sends a message to my brain that tells my brain why my body's all agitated and excited. And that way, I don't feel afraid. Remember, excitement and fear, exact same thing in your body. The only difference is what your brain calls it. Go get them.
Now, I want to give you one more example, just to make sure that you really get how you can use this. So a lot of you have written to me about your fear of flying, and I can really relate to that fear because I used to have the exact same fear. But I use this same strategy to conquer it. Here's how you're going to do it. So first things first, if you've got to do something that really makes you nervous or that you're afraid to do, before you're about to do it, come up with an anchor thought. What's an anchor thought? Well, an anchor thought is something that's going to anchor you so that you don't escalate any situation into a full-blown panic attack or into a situation where you screw things up. It's a way for you to anchor yourself so you maintain control over what you're thinking and how you behave. So here's an example with flying. It's important when you're creating an anchor thought to pick something that is in the proper context of what you're afraid to do. So for flying, pick an anchor thought that has to do with the trip that you're taking. So if I'm boarding a plane to fly back home to Michigan, an anchor thought might be a picture in my mind of my mom and I walking on the shores of Lake Michigan where I grew up. That's a thought that makes me happy, it makes me excited, and it's also related to the trip that I'm taking. If you have a conversation that you need to have with your boss, pick an anchor thought about how you feel after having that conversation. Maybe it's you picking up the phone and calling somebody that you love and saying, oh my gosh, it went so well. Or, you walking out of the meeting and feeling like, yeah, I survived that conversation. I feel pretty good about myself. So now that you have your anchor thought, you're ready to beat the fear.
This is a great story about a bunch of topics. It's a story about confidence. It's a story about being comfortable in your own skin. It's a story about being yourself, no matter where you are or what you're doing. And it's a story about the power of your unique self-expression. And your unique self-expression comes out and is amplified when you feel comfortable in your own skin. I got into the speaking business, 6 or 7 years ago. I had a TEDx talk that went crazy viral. That's what started the speaking business. And when I first got into the speaking business, I was really intimidated because I was new to it. And I wanted to do a very good job and I wanted to fit in. So I looked around at what all the top people in the industry of motivational speaking and speaking on the corporate circuit were doing. And I noticed that all the women were dressed in heels, wearing pencil skirts or beautiful dresses, the kind of thing that you might see a news anchor wearing, like a nice dress, heels. So I just wore what everybody else was wearing. Didn't even occur to me to wear something else because here I am trying to break into a new industry. So I look at everybody at the top, I copy what they're doing, and I am not comfortable in high heels. Yes, if my husband Chris and I are going out on date night, I can rock them like the best of them. But walking through a convention center in them, standing on a stage for an hour in a pair of heels while you're trying to hold in your stomach because you're being broadcast on a big screen and you're wearing a dress, it was the least comfortable outfit I could possibly wear, very self-conscious in it. I'm not that graceful in a pair of heels, so I sort of poof, poof, poof on a stage. But that's what I did for the first couple of years. So I was in Miami. This must have been probably 5 years ago. I was in Miami and I had just gotten off stage, take off the heels, take off the dress, put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. I got an hour to kill before I have to leave for the airport. I'm going to fly to Vegas because I've got a speech in Vegas the next morning. So I'm walking down Collins Ave in South Beach in Miami. And I walk past this store. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. I loved this store. And there in the window were the most amazing high-top sneakers I had ever seen in my entire life. I was like a moth to the flame. Let me show you these bad boys because these are the originals. This right here, notice the gold shimmery sparkle and the confident blaze orange. I didn't own anything like this. I'd never seen anything like this. I immediately thought, whoa, this, I bet, is what like a Justin Bieber kind of wears. I mean, these are insanely cool. I went inside and they were pretty expensive. I'd never spent that kind of money. I wasn't a sneakerhead yet, but I thought, hey, I spend that kind of money on a pair of nice heels, so why not treat myself to a pair of sneakers, okay? So I get back to the hotel, I pack up, I hop the flight, I get to Vegas. Now I wake up the next morning and I have a tech check, which is where you rehearse the speech and go through like all the technology rehearsals before the event starting. My tech check is at 7:30. The doors to the event open at 8, and I'm on stage at 8:30. And I had a red dress, my heels, or so I thought. So I crack open, that's what I was planning on wearing. I crack open the suitcase. There are no heels. I have left the heels in the hotel room back in Miami. All I have are the Birkenstocks that I wore on the plane and I wore out in Vegas last night, and my new Justin Bieber high top sneakers. And I have exactly 15 minutes to get to the tech rehearsal and nothing else is open. So Birkenstocks, Justin Bieber, I think we'll go with the Justin Bieber sparkly high tops. I slapped those puppies on. I walked from my hotel room all the way through the casino floor, past all the restaurants and the shops, to the convention center, which you know is like a 2-mile walk. I was so happy to be not only in my red dress, but more importantly, in my Justin Bieber sneakers, because it was super comfortable to walk there that way. I get to the backstage area, and for the first time in 2 years, something happened. And let me tell you what happened. One of the guys that was on the production crew turned and goes, "Ah, cool sneakers." That was like the first time somebody in production had really acknowledged me for something other than the job in 2 years. So I was like, huh. And as I started walking toward the backstage area, everybody I passed, "Cool kicks. Oh, those are cool. Oh, those are cool." And I'm like, this is wild. Nobody's ever complimented on my, like, this is not, people are. And so I did the tech rehearsal, and then this was the moment of truth. When I walked out onto that stage, it was at the MGM Arena, and there were like 5,000 real estate agents in the audience. I was there to deliver a speech for RE/MAX. It was the first time I'd ever walked on a stage where I actually felt like myself. It was also the first time that I felt the audience kind of lean forward and go, "Oh, she seems kind of cool." But when you walk onto a stage in heels and a dress, you're like the authority, and you're on a stage and you're talking at people. There's something about walking onto a stage or walking through life and having something fun that you're wearing that makes you relatable and interesting and real. And from that moment forward, I have never not worn sparkly sneakers for work. I wore them every day on my daytime talk show. I'm embarrassed to tell you that I probably have 20 pairs of these. I love, this is my favorite, these are my favorite, well, these are my favorite because these are the originals, but I would say these are my second favorite because I like the low top and I love the blue. I love these, which have a big silver kind of thing. These are super comfortable. And I've got a bunch of these, and these did not even come with sparkles. So I literally bought Swarovski crystals or whatever the hell they're called and got a glue gun out and put them on myself. If you're looking for sparkly sneakers, there's all kinds of them out there these days. It's the coolest thing in the world. Bedazzled sneakers are a thing. Whether you go to DSW or Nordstrom's or Zappos or anywhere, you can find them. And so the moral of the story, the secret to confidence is being comfortable in your own skin. And the secret to being relatable and likable is being yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. And so whatever it is that gives you a little flair, whether it's a little pin on your jacket or a little flower in your pocket or sparkles on your sneakers or cool specs, you gotta find the confidence to bring that to the way that you go through life, because there's something unique about you. And when you settle into what is really an expression for you, you feel comfortable in your own skin. And that's the greatest feeling in the world. I'm going to share with you a story
about how I figured it out, and then I'm going to give you some advice about how you can think about it, and then I want to say a few other things about the fear of disappointing people, because this is, I believe, the single biggest factor for most people that robs them of success. That you use what other people might say or think or be disappointed by as an excuse to not fully be yourself, to not fully go after what you want. And so first, let me talk about triggers, because I believe that for most of us, the habit, and I use the word habit because habit just means that it's a pattern. We have a pattern where we fear disappointing people, and then that triggers us to operate in certain ways. That pattern began a very long time ago. And I think it's safe to say that for 99% of us, you can find where it began somewhere in your childhood. And it probably doesn't matter that you find the first, because you probably have 150 examples of being terrified that your dad was going to scream at you, or terrified that your mom was going to get cold and get that tone of voice, or terrified that somebody was going to be upset with you. Because the fear of disappointing people really has more to do about being in trouble with somebody, right? So for me, I know the moment because it was a really defining moment for me, but I didn't remember it until I was 27. What happened is I had a memory being in a group environment during a seminar. Somebody was sharing about being a sexual abuse survivor, and she was talking about her sister. And all of a sudden I had this memory triggered where I remembered being in the 4th grade, and I remember being on a ski trip with my family and a couple other families, and I remembered waking up in the middle of the night with an older kid on top of me. Now, it wasn't a terrifying sexual abuse story. It was more confusing to remember it. He did what he did, and then he got off of me, and I remember my brother was sleeping in the bed next to me in the bunk bed, and I remember thinking in that moment, oh my God, don't make a noise. I don't want this person to hurt Derek. So fast forward to the morning, all the kids leave to ski. I'm kind of like underneath the covers, and I get out, I go downstairs, and as I go down the stairs, I hear my mom talking in the kitchen. And I think, I gotta tell her, I gotta tell her, I gotta tell her, I gotta tell her. So I'm in 4th grade. I round the corner, my mother's there with another mom, and there's the kid. And my mom goes, how'd you sleep? And I said, fine. And what's interesting is what? A 4th grader's brain. I mean, my mom's not gonna be upset with me. She might have gotten upset all right if I had said, not at me. There was this moment where I remember it now like that. And you don't have to come up with the moment, because I guarantee you've got 100 of them, where you have a bad report card, or you broke something, or mom or dad drank and you heard them pull in and you felt the anxiety coming in and you went into a mode where you became quiet because you don't want to upset somebody. It was just this mode where I so knew in that moment that I needed a strategy to avoid a scene. Does that make sense? Because that's what you're doing when you are not disappointing people. You are avoiding making a scene or having them do one. Does that resonate a little bit? Okay, good. So you can go to the root cause, because what I discovered in that moment in realizing, holy cow, at the age of 9, I made a decision not to tell the truth, that I would just make up what I thought would make the situation okay. And what's interesting is I can take that one decision and roll the clock forward until the age of literally like 27, probably took me longer to about like 35, 40 even, to stop lying. The fear of disappointment for me turned me into a liar, and I didn't even realize it, because I was so worried about creating a scene or upsetting people or having people judge me that I started lying as a strategy. I invented it as a 4th grader. It didn't work in my life. It made every relationship suck. It made me miserable, but that's what happened. So when you think about your pattern of being afraid of disappointing people, of managing not making a scene, you don't need to find the exact trigger when it began. If you find just one and you understand kind of how old were you and what did you feel and what were you trying to manage, and then for me, what I say to myself is, oh, well, I have a lot of empathy for myself now, because I understand why I developed that strategy. And now that I saw that it was a strategy that worked, because lying really worked when I was little, not so much when I was an adult. When I understand it was a strategy, I can now say, oh, well, that's a strategy that worked then. Now that I'm in this chapter of my life, I'm going to pick a different strategy.
So let's talk a little bit about confidence, okay? First of all, I've already said it's a skill. It doesn't matter if you were born the most insecure, thumb-sucking, abused, pathetic soul of a human being. You can build the skill of confidence. It doesn't matter if you came out of the womb super ego driven and larger than life and confident and all that stuff. You still have a lot of work to do when it comes to confidence, authentic confidence. So let me talk to you about what is the skill of confidence. Okay, you ready? My definition of confidence is not belief in self. What you're going to learn about Mel Robbins is that I love evidence-based advice because I'm kind of skeptical. I was trained as a lawyer. Life has kicked me around a little bit. I kind of cross my eyes at people that are very kind of motivational. And, I'm like, well, it's easy to do the inspirational stuff, but what's the depth, right? What's the depth? And so when I think about confidence and my definition of confidence, I looked at the research on confidence. Okay. And there's really good news here. The first thing you've already learned, it's a skill. The second thing that you are going to learn that's really good is it's very simple to build the skill of confidence. And you can do it through repetitive actions every day, very simple little things that will slowly build up the reservoir of confidence. And here's the definition I want to give you of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try. That's it. I'm going to say it again. Confidence is the willingness to try. That's it. That's all that it is. And the reason why I like this definition is because this definition that I have created for confidence, which is the willingness to try, is based in the research around confidence. So if you want to learn more about this, Google confidence competency loop. Okay, I'm going to show it to you. I'm hoping that this is not broadcasting backwards. Okay, this is my fancy little graphic. Okay, this is what we call a confidence competency loop. I did not invent this. This is something that people who research confidence for a living have created. And I've highlighted this because this is where confidence begins. It begins with the willingness to try, because I'm going to show you what ends up happening if you're the kind of person who trains yourself. Notice the words I'm using, trains. We're not going to sit around and wait for motivation. We're not going to wait for courage. We're going to manufacture those things. And this is where the 5-second rule is so transformative. Now, for those of you that don't know it, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining it. I'm going to give you the shortcut. It's just a simple brain hack backed by tremendous evidence that I created at the worst moment of my life that turns out to have extraordinary science behind it. All you do is in a moment where you feel doubt, insecurity, fear, anxiety, procrastination, perfectionism, PTSD, OCD, anything that you might possibly have that would rise up to block you, you simply count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And you got to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what that will do is it will shift gears in your mind. Instead of being stuck here in the part of the brain that keeps you stuck worrying and thinking and having a bias towards overthinking and being a perfectionist, you're going to go 1, 4, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're going to try. Now, this is what's going to happen. The first time you try, you will fail. That's really good news. You want to know why? You learn by failing. You learn by failing. Do you realize that's how you've always learned? That when you were a kid, you don't remember this, but when you were learning to walk, you fell an average of 17 times an hour. You actually learned to walk by falling. And so you learn everything when you fail, because when you fail, as much as you may think you're going to die, if you stand on a stage, I see a lot of you who want to be coaches or speakers or whatever, you're going to have to learn how to give a speech where you stutter and where your mouth gets really dry and pasty and where you get a neck rash and where you forget what you're supposed to say. You got to do all that stuff. Why? Because when you fail, you don't die. You actually gain knowledge and experience. And that's the gift of failure. because you then take that knowledge and that experience and you go right back to the next time. And then you try again. But this time when you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, try, you're going to take your knowledge and experience with you and you're going to fail a little bit less. And what you're going to learn there, you're going to take right back to the next time that you try. And every time that you fail, you're gaining knowledge and experience. And you take that to the next time that you try. And you're going to go like this, and you're going to go like this, and you're going to keep going and going and going and going and going. And every time you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you push yourself to try, you gain a little bit of competency for the next time you're going to do it. And every time you gain a little bit of competency, your mastery goes up. And that's when you start to feel more self-assured. And that muscle, everybody, of trying, that is where you build the skill of confidence, which is the willingness to not be so damn serious and hung up on being perfect and being worried about looking stupid. And instead, you're willing to lean in and try something. And what ends up happening, because so many people have a definition around confidence, it's about belief in self or self-awareness and all this kind of stuff. And that's great, but I don't prefer those definitions, because then you're sitting around waiting to feel ready. You're sitting around, and in those moments where you don't believe in yourself, you feel like you don't have a reservoir of confidence to draw on. And it couldn't be further from the truth. You were born with natural intelligence and confidence. How do I know that? I know it because it's part of the design of a human being. Think about what you were like as a child before the world got their hands on you. You just let whatever you were interested in pull you forward. You would crawl towards or tumble toward anything that you were interested in. You'd try anything. You'd crawl up to a mirror and stick your hands on it and lick the thing you loved yourself so much. But life got its meaty hands on you and started telling you no. Do you know the average kid hears some version of the word no, some redirection almost 400 times a day? So you became cautious. You started holding yourself back. You started thinking before you tried things. You started worrying about feelings. This is where it all begins. But you were born knowing how to do this. And the other reason why I know this is true is because you wouldn't know what it felt like. You wouldn't miss it if you hadn't once felt it. You wouldn't know any different. So I want you to know it's in you. And we got to just remove the block that life put in place and teach you that even in those moments where you doubt yourself, even in those moments where you're afraid, even in those moments where you're insecure, you can try. And it's in the skill of trying that you gain the competency, the knowledge, and the expertise that helps you become better and better and better. Because here's the trick. You know, the more experienced you become in something and the more you master it, the less stressed out and anxious and worried you are about doing it. That's how that sort of belief in self comes. The belief doesn't come first. It's a byproduct of you pushing yourself to try. So let me unpack some other things that I wanted to talk about quickly before we get into the Q&A. I promised to talk about self-doubt. And I want to talk about the difference between self-doubt, which is one block, and people-pleasing. I should probably share with you sort of this whole story about the way that I think about blocks. Okay. So, again, I'm working on this book about this. And the other day, this was this fall, I went out to Los Angeles to move my daughter into her off-campus apartment. And she's got this huge kind of laundry room in the basement. Have you ever been in a laundry room, like in a commercial space where they've got all the lines of dryers? And so I was washing her sheets like, moms and dads do when they move their kids into their off-campus apartments. And it was the final load of the day. I go downstairs to the basement and I open up the dryer and I'm like, that's funny. The sheets aren't dry yet. And so I put in a bunch more quarters. I hit the button. I leave. I go out the door and I hear, and I'm like, that can't be my dryer. What? So I go back and the 30 minutes is still on the dryer. And I'm like, that's weird. So I open it up. They're damp and it smells kind of like hot metal. And I see the filter and I think, oh, I wonder if the filter's jammed. You know how like a dryer doesn't really work when the filter is filled? So I like try to open it and this sucker is really jammed. So luckily 2 guys walk in with a basket of laundry and I get one of them to like help me. And it's so jammed. He has to put his like foot up on the thing and like yank it out. And when he yanks it out, like literally it was like a lint carnival. I don't think any one of the kids that live in that building had ever pulled that freaking filter out of that dryer. There was a disgusting stack of lint, like this freaking big, you guys. It was like gray and blue and black and red. And like, it was like artifacts. It was like an archaeologist of laundry lint. I'm like, it's disgusting. So I like pull that thing off. And then the janitor walks in. And he's like, these damn kids. And this is going to start a fire. And so we clean it off and he puts the filter back in and he turns to me and he says, lint builds up. It's little, but it builds up and it blocks the flow of air. And, it gets so hot in that dryer, the whole place could burn down. I seen it happen. And then he goes, but now that it's clear, the dryer can do what it's designed to do. And it gave me the biggest aha. And this is what I'm writing this book about. There is a filter in your mind called the RAS. It's called the Reticular Activity System. I like to call it the red Acura spotter because the way that this filter works, think about it, it's like a giant hairnet on your head, okay? The way that this filter works is that it blocks out things that it thinks is not important to you, and it only lets in like 1% of what's going on in the world. And here's the interesting thing. It can be programmed. It's very nimble. If you've ever gone out to buy a car, have you ever noticed that all of a sudden you go into the dealership, you're like, oh, I like that red Acura. And then the next day, what do you see everywhere? You see red Acuras. Because your RAS, the hairnet on your brain, the filter that influences absolutely everything that you think and do. By you going to shop for a car, it has gone, oh, ding, 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 hold on. Mel Robbins is interested in red Acuras. Let them in. Let the red Acuras in. And all of a sudden, every red Acura is now getting in through the hairnet in your brain. Okay? So this is good news because if you decide that dream that is meant for you is something that you want, you can program that sucker to let in information that is related to it. And suddenly it becomes so easy to spot opportunities and easy to gain momentum and easy to try. Here's the problem. You ready? Your freaking filter is trapped with mental lint. That's right. You want to know what lint stands for? Because I'm a freaking genius. Lint stands for those moments when you lose inspiration due to negative thoughts. Thank you, everybody. I know I'm a genius. You can read all about it this fall. So you've got a filter that could help you make everything happen. But you want to know what? You've got this layer of crap in your brain, just like that dryer vent had a layer of lint in it because nobody had changed the filter. You cannot do a load of laundry, people, without creating lint. And you cannot go through a day in your life without having some sort of negative mental lint build up. You have a lifetime of lint that is clogging the filter in your brain. I know it. I can teach you how to remove it, and it's impacting your willingness to try. And the 2 forms of lint, there are 5 of them, but I'm going to talk about 2 of them right now. The first one is doubt. And doubt is the kind of moment when you lose inspiration due to the negative thought, it'll never happen for me. You want to know why Mel Robbins has never done a live event? Ever. I've never done any kind of live event on my own. You want to know why? Because I've got negative crap built up from childhood that makes me say, no one will show up. True story. Tell me if you've been to an event in a stadium that I have produced. You haven't, right? Because I too have lint in there. And here's the great thing, just like that dryer, when you realize you have a filter that needs to be checked and you've got a filter in your mind that needs to be cleaned every day, once you spot the lint, it's easy to go, oh my God, look at that bullshit. Get that out of here. Come on, Mel, please. Once you clear away the doubt, it will never happen for me. You can go, oh, look at that stupid lint. There it is again. It'll never happen for me. I don't think so. Wipe that stuff away. Now you can use the definition of confidence. I'm willing to try. Whether it happens or not is irrelevant. I got to be willing to try.
So the fear of disappointing people, we've talked about one place that it comes from, which is making sure not to create a scene and making people like you. That's one lane that most of us have, and I'm going to tell you a story in a minute about how you can manage this. The second lens, and I got to give credit to my business partner Mandy for this, is that so many of us have this perfectionism gene. And the reason why we're perfectionists is we're trying to insulate ourselves from criticism. That if you get it perfect, no one will give you feedback. If you get it right, nobody's going to criticize you. If you do it perfect, then no one will be able to attack you. And the problem with that, and that's just another side of the same coin, which is the fear of disappointing people. You're managing not disappointing people, not by lying and not by being codependent, but by actually trying to be a perfectionist so that nobody criticizes you. So let me tell you a story about the fear of disappointing people in my own life. Because this is the biggest trigger in my life. I mean, it goes back to being in 4th grade, right? It's there. And this is another thing, I literally have to remind myself of this, everybody, every single day. You cannot remove the things that trigger you. You can't. If you've been doing a pattern since 4th grade, there will be things for the rest of your life that will trigger that pattern to come up. But you can always choose not to repeat the pattern. So you'll be triggered and be afraid that you're going to disappoint somebody. That's real, that's normal, it's natural, it's part of being a human being. I think it's interwoven into every relationship where you love somebody. But you don't have to behave the way that you always behaved when you're nervous about disappointing somebody. So let me give you a dumb story. You ready? When my husband and I got married, my father gave us this really incredible gift. He gave us an antique pool table. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan, where Brunswick was founded. And my dad has a hobby of going to garage sales and estate sales and buying old, dilapidated pool tables, and then he restores them. So when Chris and I got married, he bought us an old, dilapidated pool table from the same era as our house, which is the 1870s. He restored the whole thing, and then recently he and I rented a U-Haul, and we drove this sucker from Muskegon, Michigan to Boston, Massachusetts. My dad and I took a road trip. We get there, and we assemble the pool table in what used to be our playroom. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, the speaking business takes off, my business starts to grow, we have people that work for us, and my kids are older. We don't need a playroom, we need an office. The pool table is in the middle of this thing. For the first 2 years of having the office, we kept the pool table there. Why? Because I didn't want my dad to be disappointed. Because I love him. Now, he visits our house twice a year for 2 or 3 days with my mom. And I kept this thing occupying 1/3 of our office for 2 years. And then I realized I'm being ridiculous. I'm being absolutely ridiculous. Now here's the thing. Will he be disappointed if I take the pool table down? Absolutely, definitely. There are always going to be things that you do, decisions that you have to make in your life, in your business, for your family, that will disappoint other people. It's unavoidable. But the fact that he's going to be disappointed should never be the reason that I don't do something that is aligned with my values. Now, let's take it a step further. When you make a decision that is likely going to disappoint people, or that does, still make the decision, because it's your life. There's nothing worse than when you start to rob your future and your life and your happiness because you're so focused on other people. However, if you love people, you can still take care of them when you make that decision. So let me go back to the example of the pool table. So I knew I was going to take it down. I knew my father was going to be disappointed. I was disappointed. I don't have a big house. So I don't have the room for a huge pool table. I don't have a finished basement like a lot of people. I don't have like a cool garage game room thing like I just don't have it. I called him first and said, I need to talk to you about something. You know, the pool table, I love the pool table. Dad, my business is growing so much, I actually need an office. And, oh great, it'll be great in the office. And I'm like, well, yeah, it would, except I have, 3 or 4 people showing up and we got to put some desks in there for now. He even went down, well, you could put a piece of plywood, and they could work on the pool table, and then they could do the thing, and then the thing. And now my heart is racing because I don't want to disappoint my dad. And now he's fighting and I had to just say, for me, Dad, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to hire professional movers in the pool table business to disassemble this with love and care. We were going to store it beautifully. When I either get a full-time office offsite, or I build a barn, or I build a different house, this will have its own beautiful room dedicated to you. So we had this beautiful conversation. Now, was he disappointed? Absolutely. When they come to the house and visit, which they just did, and they walk into the office, do I feel a pang? You better believe I do. It doesn't matter. That's all normal. I still need to make the decisions that I need to make. And the difference, what's changed, is how I relate to that fear. So instead of what I would do in the past is I would make a decision that doesn't serve me. I'd leave the pool table and then I'd be all about it. I'd leave the pool table as a way to make my dad happy, but it makes me miserable to leave it there because I need the space, right? And then I'd be kind of annoyed. And then he'd come and I'd fake play pool because I kind of want to, you know what I'm saying? Like we do all this that's not real. And what I've been able to do for myself in some instances when I catch it is to hit it head on and to be authentic and to still take care of people. And what I've also come to learn is that people can be disappointed in you and they still love you. You're never going to get around this. Everybody in your family is going to be disappointed with you, probably once a day, probably. And you have the ability to retrain how you respond to that trigger that rises up in you where you start to fear that you're disappointing somebody. And the answer really is make the decision that's aligned with your values and the thing that supports you, and then take care of the person by being honest and straightforward about it, dealing with their disappointment head on, because that's really the adult thing to do, and that's what you do when you love somebody. The way we've all been handling it, myself included, is manipulation, lying, resentment, withholding, and that doesn't serve anybody.
I have this saying about confidence that I've only recently kind of stumbled into as I've been digging into more research around the science of confidence and the skill of confidence. Because a lot of people think that confidence is a personality trait. It's not. It's actually a skill that you build through action. And a lot of people think confidence is a state of belief. It can be, but that's not where it begins. And so I say that confidence is the willingness to try. That's all that it is. Knowing that you may succeed or survive, but you'll still try. And to me, all those people that we admire most, that's what they're doing. They have the ability to tune into those instincts that are true for them. Because the fact is, there's only one you. That's it. And you matter because there's only one you, and there's only ever going to be one you. And your instincts and your experiences and your inner wisdom is a gift to the world. And every time that you tune it out because of the habit of hesitating or the habit of self-doubt or the habit of worrying or the habit of overthinking, you are robbing the world of that gift that you have to give to everybody. And you can use this simple, stupid, silly tool to train yourself to not only hear it, but also to develop the skill of courage to act on it.
Powerful. And is there any area of your life where you feel like you lack courage still?
I'll admit it's kind of easy. I think we all kind of go through those moments where you feel like you're behind. And I think social media is both an incredible tool, and it can also be one of those triggers that makes you feel like, look at how many followers this guy has. And I'm like so tiny compared to this guy right here. Like, it's easy to use technology and social media
not for inspiration, but actually as a way to bash yourself that you're not doing what other people are doing.
Comparison and or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that I use the rule a lot for patience. I notice that my insecurity rises up because right now, look, I did a ridiculous number of speeches last year. I travel way too much. I don't want my life to look like that. It's a champagne problem. I get it.
Yeah.
But I also have 3 kids and a marriage that I love, and I really feel depleted when I'm not with them. And so I'm practicing patience as I make an intentional pivot in the kind of business that I'm running so that I have more of a life that I want as well. Yeah. So that's one area. I don't feel insecure as much as, the term deliberate practice, right? Mm-hmm. And the 5-hour rule where
deliberate practice, is that from the Talent Code?
Well, the deliberate practice is actually a psychological principle.
I think it was in a book called The Talent Code, but yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a psychological principle that, the 10,000-hour rule.
I mean, deliberate practice is in sports. Yeah,
so deliberate practice is this idea that, you could do 10,000 hours at anything and become an expert at it, but the way to do it faster is to do deliberate practice, which means you're practicing with the intention of improving, and there's a feedback loop.
Yeah. So you do 2,000 hours as opposed to 10,000.
Correct. Right. Like, for example, if you want to become an expert at guitar, learn scales. Don't just sit there for 10,000 hours and play the same song. Right. If you learn scales, you get the finger dexterity and the muscle memory and the neural pathway development. By the way. Yes, so I saw your guitar over there.
So hard.
I saw your guitar. I always wanted to play guitar, but instead I forced my 3 children to learn.
That's good. You just enjoy it. You just watch them.
Exactly.
My brother's, the #1 jazz violinist in the world.
What?
Yeah. And so I grew up watching the most incredible,
Now, is he built like you, too?
He used to be even, more jacked. They used to call him the Incredible Hulk of violin because he was just,
wow, snap the thing in half as
he would. He
would,
slam it Jimi Hendrix style, yeah. But now he's leaned up a bunch, actually. And so he's incredible. So I used to just be all awestruck by his gifts. And it was unbelievable, his skill. And so I learned guitar. I taught myself when I was 18 just because I was like, I have to know something, in terms of music. Cool. I can barely, I'm like a hack, but, at least I can do something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm kind of in this mode of improving myself. And I'll give you one more thing that I'm working on. So I kind of think about my life and my work in 3 buckets. So we got this bucket here, we got this bucket, and we got this bucket. And so when you think about your business or you think about your passion or you think about work, I think about, okay, what do I need to do in terms of how much time and what actions do I need to take in order to develop the skills so that I can perform the work? Mm-hmm. So there's the deliberate practice that goes into practicing your skill and your
mastery.
And your competency mastery, so that when it comes time to actually deliver the work, whether that's selling or standing on a stage or writing a book or talking to people or selling real estate or whatever it is that may be your passion, deliver. This is the one I neglected last year. This bucket is, what are you doing to personally develop yourself so that you are the most capable, fulfilled, and satisfied human being, so that when you show up to do your competency and your skills and the delivery, that you as the human being are able to do that.
Yeah.
And so I've been spending a lot more time consuming content, reading books, watching, your incredible show, and learning from other people. And I think that one of the traps that we entrepreneurs get into is I was feeling last year anyway, like I was on a treadmill, and when I wasn't looking, somebody was coming by and turning up the speed.
Sure.
And I was only in this alley.
And increasing the hills, whatever.
Yes. And so, and if you're my age, you need like a diaper when somebody does that. And you're on a treadmill and a leash to keep you attached to it. Exactly. So I've been focusing a lot on this, and it's been interesting because you and I were talking earlier too about you going to India and some of the stuff that you learned in terms of the different states to be in. And I use one where I pay attention to where I'm feeling depleted versus where I'm energized. And here's the thing. You can be doing things that are really hard that energize you. You can be doing things that are really scary that energize you. The same is true with things that deplete you. There are things in your life that are really easy for you. There are people that you hang out with, by the way, that you've been hanging out with for years, but they deplete you. And so I've been starting to become more deliberate about how I distance myself from things that deplete me and how I spend more time and energy either doing or pushing myself to do those things that actually energize me. And this gets back to your message around passion, right? And that, you know, the art and the skill of building a life that is guided by the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I believe with all of my heart and being that every man, woman, child, person, grandparent, everybody should infuse their days with habits of celebration and self-confidence. And the fastest and easiest and most science-backed way to quickly start to change how you see yourself is by adopting a simple habit of high-fiving your reflection in the mirror every single morning. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. Are you serious, Mel Robbins? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I know it sounds dumb. But the reason why your first instinct when you think about waking up, whether you're in your robe or your underwear, or your PJs or your birthday suit, and walking into that bathroom and having a moment with yourself and raising your hand and high-fiving yourself is because your self-confidence is in the gutter. You believe some garbage about yourself. You think you're a bad person, or you're unworthy, or you're ugly, or nobody likes you. Or how about this one? This was the story of my life. I have f***ed up my life so badly, I might as well just flush it down the toilet. You have some narrative in your mind that is so negative that when you look in the mirror, you see somebody worth trashing. You see what's wrong. You pick apart your appearance. And I want to reverse that, because here's the deal about self-confidence. Self-confidence begins with you. You realize the word self is in there, right? I can't give you confidence. I can give you a little boost. I can give you tools. I can encourage you. But confidence is forged in fire. It's something that's within you. And here's the thing I want you to realize about confidence. You are a confident person. That's why you miss feeling that way. You can only miss what you know. You've just been blocked from the feeling of it. And wherever you are right now in your life, I'm telling you, confidence is in there. You just got to figure out how to tap into it. And you've been building confidence all along, by the way. Every time that you have fallen on your face, or you've tried something and failed, or you've gone out and thought you found the love of your life, and then your heart's broken, and then you pick yourself up again, and then you dust yourself. You're building confidence the entire time, because confidence is not built on the high days. Confidence is built on the low ones. Confidence is built when you are struggling. Because when you see yourself go for something and fall, when you see yourself try and get knocked down, when you see yourself stand back up after getting abused or traumatized or discriminated against and moving ahead, you are building this reserve within yourself where you know you can rely on yourself. You know you can face hard things and you can keep moving forward. You know you have your own back. So it's in there. Your life has been helping you build it. Now you got to just dig in and tap into it and use it to shut that critic up in your head. So the way you're going to do that is every morning, I'm not kidding, you're going to raise your hand in the mirror and high five yourself. Look at how many people are doing this. You're not the only one. For 5 mornings in a row, I want you to high five yourself. And when you do this, I want you to use the hashtag high five challenge. You know what's happening when you raise your hand up in the mirror? You are taking the lifetime positive association that you have with cheering for other people, believing in other people, celebrating other people, saying, let's go to other people. And you are marrying that positive association with your reflection. It is impossible to raise your hand in the mirror and go, I suck. You can't do it. Because your brain and the subconscious sees this and thinks, let's go, I love you, I believe in you. And when you do this every single morning, something incredible happens. First of all, you're not going to leave your bathroom feeling like you're dragging a boulder. You're going to leave there feeling like the wind's at your back. Secondly, you're going to have spent the morning, the first thing in the morning, by taking a moment and being with yourself And not seeing your face and picking yourself apart, but actually seeing the person that's underneath the skin, the soul that's behind the face. You are going to shut the critic up. You're going to silence your to-do list. And when you raise your hand like this, it also prompts you to think about the game you're playing. So now you got a moment to be like, oh yeah, yay me. I'm still here. I can make today a good day. In fact, what game do I want to play today? Just for me. So that's the first thing that you're going to do. You're going to high five yourself, take the high five challenge, which is high five yourself 5 days in a row in the mirror, take a photo of it, post it on your story, tag me so I can cheer for you, and start to notice what happens. Something weird happens by day 4 when you get out of bed. You're going to have this weird feeling that you've never had. You're going to feel like you're looking forward to seeing yourself in the mirror because something weird happens when you start to really be present with yourself. When you normally walk in the bathroom and you ignore yourself, you're alone. I think a lot of us feel like we're alone in our lives. When you start to see yourself, you literally, oh, hey, hi there, Mel Robbins. How you doing? You now, as you look forward, oh, hey, girl, how you doing? Hi, Mel Robbins. Oh, hey, let's go. I believe in you. Gonna have a great day. It's almost like when your neighbor waves to you. You're seeing yourself. You know, now that I've been doing this for a year, I don't feel like I'm alone. I feel like I've got myself and I've got my own back. I feel like this person that I see in the mirror is the one person that's going to be with me for my entire life. So I better cheer for her. I better celebrate her. I better encourage her and love her. And that's what you're doing when you do this every morning to yourself. And there are mornings where I stand in my underwear at my bathroom sink and even I don't have a word to say to myself. But I can always do this. And it always lifts my mood. And it is creating that deep connection within me to myself. And that's what builds your confidence. Confidence is being comfortable in your own skin. Confidence is knowing that you have your own back. Confidence is knowing that you can face something. Confidence is believing in your ability to face or survive or try something and be better. And confidence is being willing to try. And all of those things happen when you raise your hand every single morning. The second thing that you should do is you got to be honest with yourself. If there are things about your appearance that are within your control, whether it is the shape that you're in, whether it's the health choices that you're making, whether it's how you take care of yourself in terms of self-love, and you're not taking action in those areas, the lack of action says to your brain, you don't care about yourself. And so what I want you to do is pick one thing, one behavior that you could do every day. The high five's one of them. Pick another one. And I want you to practice doing it. And it's a behavior. If you think about the person that you want to become, what's that person do every day that you don't do right now? And when you start to do the thing that the person you want to become is doing, you leverage something called behavioral activation therapy. And that is a whole body of research that says when you act like the person you want to become, it's the most powerful way to change a habit. It's even better therapy than talk therapy because the action proves to your brain that you're becoming that person. You're seeing the change through the action. And so then the brain catches up and starts to relate to you like a person that's confident or a person who adores their appearance or a person that celebrates themselves exactly as they are. So try those two things. Make sure you tag me online when you do the high five challenge. And I know it's going to work.
So first of all, I literally have struggled with anxiety my entire life. And anxiety for this conversation, the way I define it is the habit of worrying spiraled out of control. You know, you may say that you are a worrier. That's not true. You have a habit of worrying. A habit is a pattern of behavior or thinking that you repeat without realizing it. So anxiety happens when that pattern of worrying about things spirals out of control, and now it starts to marry and manifest itself with physical sensations too. That's all that it is. I know that I say that's all that it is. Me personally, I struggled with anxiety, I think my entire life. It became quite acute when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I became medicated in the middle of law school. I took Zoloft for 2 decades. When our first daughter was born, who is now 17, the postpartum depression and the cascading panic was so terrible that not only was I medicated and couldn't breastfeed, but I couldn't be left alone with her.
Wow.
So when I say you can cure yourself of anxiety, I don't say that lightly. 4 years ago, after I had been using the 5-second rule to change my behavior, how I spoke to my husband, how I negotiate in business meetings, how I conduct sales, the kind of parent that I am, my health habits, my eating habits, curbing the drinking, I thought, I wonder if I can use this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing to get control of my thought patterns. Not my behavior patterns, my thought patterns. Yes, you can. So we're gonna build this conversation because I want to start with something we can all relate to, and that is, how do you stop worrying and how do you stop listening to self-doubt? This is how you're going to do it. So all day long, you're going to have moments where your thoughts drift, and I use that word on purpose because for me, there is a physical sensation when you start to use the 5-second rule and you start to wake up. Not only on time in the morning, but you wake up to your life and the opportunities in your life. Your thoughts drift. Like you'll just be hanging out with your friends and then suddenly you're like, I'm not sure that person likes me anymore. I haven't heard from my kids lately. I wonder if they're dead or, as a check, like you just start worrying about stuff. Why? Because it's a habit. Because when you're not paying attention, your brain shifts from you being a decision maker and paying attention to you just kind of spinning things on autopilot, and one of your habits is worrying. The second you wake up and you notice, holy cow, I'm talking some negative garbage to myself right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've just shifted the part of the brain that you're using. You've shifted from the basal ganglia, which is where your habit loops are spinning, and you've awakened your prefrontal cortex. You've also interrupted that pattern. Now what you're going to do, because your mind is actually ready to receive a different thought because of the counting, now you can put in an anchor thought. Like if you have a mantra, if you've got a vision about the way that your business is going to turn out in 5 years, if you just have a thought that makes you really happy and proud, insert that. Now, why does this work? It works because of the counting. And I'm not kidding. We know, based on research, that positive thinking alone, not effective. In some instances, trying to force yourself to think positive can actually make the worries worse. Why? Well, the reason why is because it's really hard to just change the channel. What we have to do first is basically interrupt it and turn off the TV, and then turn it back on with the prefrontal cortex awakened. So the counting is essential. And so you can start using this today. You catch yourself talking garbage to yourself, because we all know if I were to put a speaker on your head and broadcast, you wouldn't be sitting here in the audience, you'd be in an insane asylum, because the crap that you say to yourself is insane. And the problem is we listen to it. You'll be in a sales meeting and you'll be undermining yourself. They're not going to buy. Oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. You're not even present. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch it back. Get back to that vision that you have about toasting your success, or this customer being really happy, or you being proud of yourself. Whatever that vision may be, you can control your thoughts. And this is not just us talking about it. This is a tool that you can use. So let's take it a step further. So worrying, if you let it go unchecked, what will happen is you will get used to worrying. You will get used to living in a state where you're slightly agitated all the time. Let me talk a little bit about agitation. So what we know based on research is that physically, in your body, so physiologically, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Let me say that again, because it is so important. In your body, being excited is the exact same thing as being afraid. Your body doesn't know the damn difference. Your heart races, your armpits sweat, you're like, you may get tight in your throat. Your cheeks may get pink like mine do when I get excited. The only difference between excitement and fear is what your brain says. And the problem is, if you have a habit of worrying, guess what you're going to tell yourself is going on? That you're like freaking out. that you're not excited, that something must be wrong. Oh gosh, why would you say something's wrong? Because you got a habit of saying that all the time. Even as I became a speaker for a living, or I'd be on CNN, when I first started doing it, I would be freaking out backstage. But even though, like, just last week, standing backstage, about to go on, 8,000 people, heart races, armpit sweat, my hands get clammy. I'm not nervous though, not at all. I'm excited. And so I developed this technique, and research out of Harvard, not based on my technique, but something very similar, proves that if you basically, right before you're about to do something, take a test, run a race, public speaking, a business negotiation, ask somebody to marry you, whatever it may be that gets your heart racing, just do this. Go, I'm excited. I'm excited to give that speech. I'm excited to ask him or her. I'm excited to do this race. I'm excited. Because what happens is you give your brain context, so your brain doesn't escalate the stuff going on in your body. Your brain's not worried. Make sense?
Yeah.
So you can combine this with the 5-second rule. So we know how to do worrying. You catch your thoughts drift, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, anchor thought. If you start to feel your heart racing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to awaken the prefrontal cortex, and then start going, I'm really excited to do this. I'm really excited to do this. Another technique that you can use is ask, I think they call it interrogatory questions, where instead of giving yourself a pep talk, say, well, why am I ready to do this? Why am I ready? Because that'll force you to answer the question, which then convinces you. So why am I ready to close this sale? Why am I ready to give this speech? Why am I ready? So those are two strategies that you can use backed by science that are proven to actually make your performance be much better. Now let's take it a step further to anxiety. So anxiety is what happens when the habit of worrying spins out of control, your body gets really agitated, and then you allow your mind to escalate it into a full-blown panic attack. So for those of you that have not had the pleasure of having a panic attack, let me explain what it's like. So have you ever been in your car and you're driving down the road and you go to change lanes and all of a sudden there's like, oh my God, there's a car right there, right? And you swerve a little bit and then your heart's like, and you may sweat a little bit and you grip the wheel really tight and you're super locked in on the road ahead of you. But then that car pulls away and the near miss scenario passes and your mind starts going, okay, you're all right now.
Right.
You're all right now. That's it. That's all. That's what a panic attack is, only it happens while you're standing in front of your coffee pot. Seriously. You have that same, oh my God, what behind that? And your heart's racing, and the problem for your brain is that your brain can't look around and say, holy cow, we almost got hit by a car.
Right.
Your brain's saying, what the hell is wrong with her? She's making coffee and she's freaking out. And so now your brain has a problem, because what's your brain's job? It's designed to protect you. So your brain will now do whatever it can to magnify the problem. Remember, we talked about the spotlight effect. It'll start telling you all kinds of crazy stuff because it can't figure out contextually what the hell's going on. She's just making coffee. Now her heart is racing and she's breathing really. Holy cow, maybe she is having a heart attack. A lot of people that have panic attacks say, I think I'm dying. Oh my God, what's happening? Wow. Or you'll see them do the deer in the headlights thing where they got to get out of the room. That is the spotlight effect in your brain, now taking control and magnifying everything to get you out of whatever it was. So here's how you use the 5-second rule. You use it to stabilize your thoughts before the panic escalates. And then what happens is it drifts into worry and then it disappears. Right. So the second you feel worry, you catch it, you train yourself to do that. If you start feeling yourself getting, your heart racing, you can 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and use the I'm excited. If that doesn't work, literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just give yourself an anchor thought, literally, of you being okay. And today's coffee talk is all about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And I'm sure you've heard that statement, right? Feel the fear. And the thing that I want to talk to you about today is that there is not only a lot of inspiration behind that statement, feel the fear, but there's also a lot of science behind it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, that if you want to get through and break through your fears that are holding you back, you're going to need to learn to feel the fear and do it anyway. Yesterday, I also want to just say that we talked about, oh no, it wasn't yesterday. Was it yes? Did we go live yesterday? I'm having a hard time remembering what's going on in my life because I've been on the road since Sunday. I'm now in Miami. Yesterday, we talked about living your passion, and a lot of you were confused about where to turn in your life if you don't know how to live with more passion. A lot of you keep saying you want to find your passion. And so I want to remind you about the fact that if you missed yesterday's training, it's a really important one about the definition of passion, because passion is something that's in you. It's something that you unlock. It's something that you release. It is not something that you go and find outside of you. It's something you tap into inside of you. If you missed that training, make sure you go to Facebook or go to YouTube, and you can watch that training in full. It's a super, super, super important one. But today we're going to be talking about feel the fear, because what you're going to learn today is that we tend to think about fear as something that's up here, that the fears are all in our heads. Well, the truth is your body feels fear and remembers fear and senses fear way before your mind does. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this is because, as many of you know, we have a brand new audiobook that just launched with Audible Originals. So Audible Originals is an imprint inside of Audible. We are a major partner of Audible's, and we just released a brand new audiobook. It's their #1 new release on Audible called Take Control of Your Life: How to Silence Fear and Win the Mental Game. And there were some unbelievable things that I learned and that my team learned and that we're now sharing with you in doing that project. So Take Control of Your Life isn't your typical audiobook. It's not me just reading a book that I wrote. What Take Control of Your Life is Take Control of Your Life is a live coaching and takeaway program that's 10 hours long. And so there are 6 people that you meet when you listen to Take Control of Your Life. And they have fears, just like you have fears that are holding them back, just like you have fears that hold you back, fears that impact your life in a negative way. And we go session by session for 6 sessions. You listen to the coaching session, you hear about somebody else's fear, you hear me coaching this person live, and then I spend like 45 minutes unpacking the entire coaching session for you. And on top of it, you guys, there's a 55-page workbook that our team designed that goes along as a companion to this audiobook. And you don't even need to buy the audiobook to get the workbook or to get the takeaways, because I'm giving you the takeaways for free here on our live stream. So if you want the audiobook, just go to melrobbins.com/take control and you can download the audiobook. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to talk to you about the session that we did with Heather in Take Control of Your Life. And it's a really incredible session because Heather is held back at work, because what happens is when she has to have a really difficult conversation, when there's something that she wants to talk to her boss about, when there's a conflict with one of her colleagues. You ever have a conflict with your colleagues at work? Ever feel like you work in a toxic work environment? Well, this is something that you need to understand. Sometimes the toxicity in your work environment is about the other people. And sometimes the toxicity in your work environment or in your life environment or your friend environment is about stored memories in your body from your childhood. I know it's crazy stuff, because the saying, feel the fear and do it anyway, it's true, because your body feels situations that set you, that put you in a state of being afraid before your mind catches up and starts thinking about what you're afraid of. And so one of the key takeaways from Take Control, and one of the things that I want to teach you today, is that if you start to tune into your body and you start to notice the signals that your body is sending to you in your day-to-day life, signals like butterflies in your stomach, signals like feeling a rush of energy up to your neck, signals like your armpits sweating, signals like your hands getting sweaty, signals that your body is stepping and noticing a situation that reminds it of your past.
Learning how to read those signals that, oh my God, here goes my body. My body is starting to recognize that this is a situation that puts me on edge. Recognizing those signals first and slowing the body response down before your brain starts to go, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That is a critical skill in taking control of your life. Do you feel like you worry too much? Do you feel like you live in your head too much? Do you wish that your mind was a more positive place? You know, my daughter and I are here in Miami, and I'm just like you. My mind can be my worst enemy. I was laying in bed last night and I had fallen asleep and I kept waking up. And you know what I was thinking about? I was waking up because I could hear people in the hallway kind of coming in from a late night of partying. And you know what the first thing that my mind defaulted to? There being a fire in the hotel. And I started having these visions of my daughter and I going down the stairwell and getting trapped. And then I had visions of us being on the balcony on this room and fire kind of engulfing. And what are we doing? Are we tying a rope? I mean, it's just insanity, absolute insanity. And I used the techniques that I teach you. I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I am not thinking about this. And the thought disappeared because I constantly reset my mindset. And, you know, one of the reasons why I'm telling you this is if you are tired of feeling negative, if you feel often that your own thoughts are the things that trip you up in life, that you wish that your mind were more positive, I'm telling you that I'm the same way. Just because I teach this stuff, just because I study this, just because I do what I do for a living, doesn't make me immune to what it means to be human. And what it means to be human is that your brain and your body want you to survive. Your brain and your body remember situations that scare the daylights out of you. Your brain and your body try to talk you out of anything that makes you feel risky. And your brain, given that it has been trained by situations in the past, and given that you allow it to worry all the time, you have a habit of doing it, if you're not careful and you're not deliberate, your brain will default to scary crap like mine was last night. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means that your brain is thinking something that's broken, and it's time for you to reset your mindset and pull it back. What is one thing that you know that you need to do that when you think about doing it, and a lot of times it's a conversation, when you think about doing it, you get a pit in your stomach? I want you to write in the comments, what is that thing that you are afraid to do? You know you should do it. It's probably a conversation. And, oh, here we go. My 29-year-old son came home. He's living with us temporarily. He's bringing women home late night from the bars. He's a lot like his father, so very confrontational. Having that conversation gives you a pit. Starting writing my book, having a conversation with my coach, leaving my home, driving, asking for my raise that I'm worth, quitting my job, calling that prospect in my business, paying my taxes, paying my bills, working out in front of other people, doing a presentation. These are all driving to another state in busy traffic, reaching out to new clients. Excellent. Opening up a business. So as you think about this thing that you want, what immediately happens is you feel a pit in your stomach. That's what happens before your mind even goes, oh, I'm scared to call prospects. Oh, I'm scared to leave a secure job. Oh, I'm scared to write this new script. Oh, I'm scared to lose weight. I'm scared to address the issues in my marriage. I'm scared to talk to my husband about money. I'm scared to stand up for myself. I'm scared to act as I feel I should because I'm scared about the negative consequences. Your brain doesn't even process it yet. What happens is you have an idea about this thing that you know you need to do, and you immediately feel a pit in your stomach, or you feel your chest tighten, or you feel energy rise up into your neck, right? Your body is feeling the fear first. And believe it or not, part of the self-awareness and self-mastery and the ability to move your life forward is not only in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, finding the instant motivation and courage to push yourself forward, but the true liberation and freedom is going to come when you start to understand the body signals that got programmed a long time ago in your body that are holding you back.
and learning how in those moments when you get a pit in your stomach to recognize it and slow the body sensations down and then move forward before your mind starts talking you out of it. So a lot of what happens for us is you had situations when you were a kid, maybe your mom or your dad were really intense. Maybe you grew up in a very competitive household. Maybe you were the kind of kid that things were better in your house when you were seen but not heard. And so and your body remembers it. Your body remembers situations when your parents were yelling because as a kid it feels traumatic. Your body remembers situations where in a classroom you were nervous or afraid to be called out or be seen. Your body remembers moments when you were embarrassed. And so what's interesting is that your body will now face any situation where you're about to be seen or you're about to speak up or you're about to do something where you're facing uncertainty or you're about to face judgment. And your body remembers those situations and it starts to get nervous or agitated or on edge because it knows, oh my God, you're about to do something that's going to expose you, and your body wants to keep you safe. That's why your stomach starts to go grumbly. That's why your chest starts to get tight, because you are about to do something that exposes you. You're about to do something that is new. You're about to do something that is scary, and your body wants to try to protect you. Now, your body's misreading the situation, by the way. I want to tell you a little bit about the science. So there's this famous neuroscientist called Antonio Damasio, and he did a really interesting study where he discovered that our body senses fear before our mind even realizes it. And when fear or danger, speaking to your boss, calling a prospect, going to the gym when you're not proud of the way that you look, and it's not fear like terror, it's more that low grade agitation in your body. I felt it yesterday because I went to a boot camp class yesterday and I'm not in good shape and I don't do boot camp classes. And Kendall and I are staying at this hotel where, holy cow, everybody seems like there's some sort of professional weightlifter or Instagram model. And so it was really intimidating. And I could feel that agitation in my body. That's the kind of fear I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the paralysis fear your life is threatened and you really are in a life or death situation. I'm talking about the low grade agitation that is there when you're about to do something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So when fear or danger is sensed in the body, your body begins a stress response before your mind even catches up. And if you want to take control of your life, you got to take control of that physical state. And it starts with catching these moments, everyone, when you start to feel it. Okay. And so for some of you, it may be a pit in the stomach. For some of you, it may be tightening in the chest. For Heather, who was one of the people I coached in Take Control, it was this massive wave of heat that went into her chest, tightness, a rash, and then she could start to feel that she was crying. You need to understand how do you react to situations that make you nervous. Write it in the comments. Write it in the comments. Is it a tightness in your stomach? Is it a tightness in your chest? Is it a deep, tense breathing? Is it a rash? Do your thoughts race? What is it that happens to you when you think about going in and talking to your boss about a raise? What is it that happens to you when you think about picking up the phone and calling a prospect in your business? Here's tightness in the chest. Crying, shallow breathing, the heat wave comes on, my thoughts start to race, my tummy gets upset. Excellent, excellent. These are all physiological responses of your body getting in a state where it's about to pay attention. It doesn't mean that anything's going to go wrong. The problem is when you feel that chest, sweat, stomach drop, the shutting down, the nervous belly, when you feel that, you immediately assume something is wrong and you have trained yourself to do one of two things. Shut up or don't show up. That's it. That's it. And what we want you to do is I want you, when that happens, what I want you to do is go, oh, here's my body. Here's my body sensing something. Just call it out for what it is. And then I want you to slow your body down. I want you to take, and look, here's Ro the realtor. I used the 5-second rule to ask for a better commission split, and I got it. Good.
Because here's the other interesting piece of science. You know that wave that you feel, or your tongue gets numb, or you get tightness in your cheeks, or you freeze? You know when that happens? Based on the science, there is only a 90-second chemical release in your body. It's called the 90-second rule. When your body stomach starts to flutter, when your heart starts to race, when you feel this feeling of fear that you have that's unique to you, based on the science, there's a 90-second rule, and all of the chemical release that's happening, because your body is going into a state of being alert, it only sticks around for 90 seconds. As long as you don't let your thoughts race. If your thoughts start to race, you'll start to agitate the situation. I haven't lost anybody that I love. So I would not say what I'm about to say if somebody that I loved had died in this pandemic. But I have found the great pause that the last 2 months have forced me to take to be the greatest gift that I have received in the last decade. My kids have been home. I have been off the road. I have been forced to slow down. I have been reminded of what actually matters: your health, your family, your friends, what you're doing to take care of your mind and your body and your spirit, and making sure that you do something with the time that you have that you really, really enjoy. And the other thing that it's really made me stop and think about is making sure that I'm having fun, that my whole life isn't just work. And it's made me really start to think about the fact that I don't want to go back to the life that I was living before the pandemic hit. How many of you feel that way? That this has been a gigantic mental perspective switch reset button that has, boom, hit you really hard. I want to know in the comments, what is it that you, with this new perspective that the pandemic has given you, what is it that you want to change in your life coming out of this? I want to start seeing. I see people saying this has been a wake-up call. I see people saying, yes, this has been a huge shift in my perspective. I see Brianna saying, I want to travel less for work. What do you want? Kelly says she's had a mental switch. Kelly, what has this pandemic given you in terms of the gift? Heather's saying, I want to ask myself, what do I really want to do? Kim says, I don't want to go back to the rat race. Brock says, I want to start the year excited about it. I see somebody saying, Larissa says a new business. Megan says, I want more boundaries. Tara says, I want to have more fun. What is it that you want to change, given the gift that this pandemic has given you in terms of shifting your perspective? Dinky says, value my friends and family. Jill says, take care of my mental health. Spend more time with family. What do you want to change, everybody? Seriously, what do you want to change about your life? Is it a relationship? Is it that you have had the time to take care of yourself in small ways, and that's giving you greater control in your life? Do you want to change your job coming out of this? Do you want to launch a business coming out of this? Do you want to change your timeline for achieving your goals? Is there some project that you want to take on? Because what you're going to hear me say over and over again is that the single most important project you could ever work on is yourself. And the greatest gift that any challenge will ever give you is a perspective shift and the realization that you can face hard things, that you can survive hard things, and that in learning more deeply about yourself and about what you value through the challenges in life, you are going to be handed a moment where you can make a decision. You hear me say all the time, you're one decision away from a different life. Changing your life does not take motivation. Motivation is garbage. Changing your life takes discipline. The discipline to make a decision to change. You see, you need 3 things if you want to come out of this pandemic and truly change your life for the better. So many of you do not want to go back to the life that you were living. You see something greater for you. And what you're going to need in order to make that shift is you need clarity. You need the clarity to write the change down. And I want you to start right now. What in the comments? Let's get really clear. Terry wants to come out of this a healthier and better person. What is the clarity? Tell me the change that you want to make coming out of this. You got to have the clarity to write it down. That's number 1. The second thing that you got to have in order to make a change happen is you've got to learn the skill of confidence, which is the ability to try something when you don't feel ready. You may not know how to do this change. I see advocate for myself. I see more physical movement. I see I want to change my job. I want to start a business. I want to earn more money. I want to travel less. I want my work to have meaning. I want to get out of an abusive relationship. I want to help people in need. I want to make sure that I continue to keep the promises that I've been keeping, getting up on time, working out every day, working on my relationship. This is fantastic because you're having a moment of clarity. And when you start to write it down, you are starting to develop the confidence and the knowing that you deserve to have this change happen. And then finally, what do you need in order to really change your life? Because it's not motivation, everybody, it's discipline. Discipline to make small promises, keep small promises, discipline to take small actions when you feel afraid, the discipline to find the courage to push yourself forward when you don't know how. That's how you change your life. Just those 3 things: clarity, confidence, courage. That's all you need. And that's why you got me in your life, because I'm here to push you. I'm here to encourage you. And I love seeing what you want to change. That, oh, I see you need help building confidence. No problem. I got you covered. Because confidence isn't something that you feel. Confidence is a skill. Confidence is the willingness to try. Because it's through the act of trying, through the act of simply writing down what's the change that you want to make right there in the comments. Just writing it down and trying it out, trying out writing what that feels like, that's going to show you that you have the ability to start to express the things that you want. And that's the first step, to claim these things that you think about. So for those of you, more than 100 of you, who have written to me in the last week and who have said, I've had a huge perspective shift thanks to this pandemic. And there are some major changes I want to make in my life. I want to start a women's group. I want to end this relationship that I'm in. I want to stop bashing myself all the time. I want to launch that business I've been talking about. All of the things that you've put on hold. Now is the time to change. So many of you asked me, is it the right time to change your job after a pandemic like this? Absolutely. Because if you don't hear the clarity that's inside you, if you don't quiet the noise and tune in to hear, if your instincts, if your wisdom, if your knowing, if inside of you, you hear yourself saying, I got to get a new job. I got to get out of this relationship. I don't want to live where I live anymore. I want to be near the water. I want to be in the mountains. I want to be out of the city. You have to tune into that stuff. And then it's about confidence and courage to take action. That's it.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.